For quite a while, there was a lot of talk of something called the theory of everything. And what scientists, it was mostly in the science field, what they were looking for was some theory or some discovery that they could then use as the answer to all of the questions of life. The problem is that we live in a society that wants to compartmentalize everything and wants to make everything small. My approach to life is a bit different than that. See, I like the grand vistas. One of my favorite drives, in fact, is over on the East Coast going up I-81. As you climb between and you go from North Carolina into Virginia, you make this tremendous climb up to the top of the Appalachian Mountains. And as you look over to the east, this huge vista just opens up. And kind of in the middle of it all is Pilot Mountain. And that area was actually the basis for the Andy Griffith Show. But it's an absolutely gorgeous drive. If you're ever able to get into that area, I would definitely go that way and just really enjoy the view. And I'm the type of person that also, I've always been bothered by people arguing about what type of moss is on a tree. And they lose sight of the fact that this moss is on a huge tree that's in the middle of a forest. And I think you have to start with the forest and work your way down to the individual tree and then to the moss. And that's kind of my approach too with what I see going on with the arguments between the theologians who are, they want to make the Bible into a science book. But then you've got the scientists on the other hand, and they're saying, no, everything's just science. We can't take this book of faith. And I take a completely different approach to all of this. I believe that the theory of everything is right there in front of us. And I think it's a mistake to dismiss God because of the scientific method, and to say, well, if we can't find him scientifically, he doesn't exist. And then on the faith side, with the Bible, people say, well, God's here. You know, what's your problem with, you know, if the science doesn't agree with the Bible, well, the Bible's right and science is wrong. And I disagree with both of these approaches. You see, I believe that God's given us all the puzzle pieces that we need, and to put one thing against another is a short-sighted approach. In the Bible, Jesus talked and he said, where you agree in my name, whatever that is, I'll do it. And I think that what I've always felt Jesus was talking about was when we come together as humans and we each bring our approach and our beliefs and our outlooks and our viewpoints together, and we mesh all of these viewpoints together, then we find what we are supposed to do. And within the church, it's when you get all of the ideas together that then the church can move forward. You're all supposed to be saved, born again, serving the Lord, wanting the Lord's work, but everyone within the church has different life experiences and different areas of expertise. And so it's when we bring all of that together, instead of fighting each other and saying, no, it's my way, or it's my way, or it's this way, but when we instead open up and we mesh everything together, then we start to do God's work. He brought us all together for a reason. And I believe it's the same thing in society. God created all of us, and we've all got different life experiences. So my viewpoint is this: on all of these disciplines, I think we need to talk to each other instead of talking at each other. To me, here's kind of my viewpoint, and why I think all of the disciplines are important. To me, art expresses our inner soul, that creative ability that God gave us, that way to look out and see something better, or to express messages. History tells us what happened. Science tells us why things happen. Math measures how much happened, and the Bible tells us why things happen. And so I believe it's when we mesh all of these things together that then we get the full picture. So when people say, well, God's in dark matter or God's in dark energy, I don't believe that. I believe God is outside of His creation, and I believe it's all part of His creation. I believe that as we examine ourselves, the best part of ourselves, that we start to discover the nature of God, since we are created in His image. And then as we look at history, we can see the lessons of both good and bad, people who did well and people who did poorly. And in fact, the scriptures say that we are to take these things as lessons for ourselves and as examples, both of what we should and shouldn't do. We see with the wars, we see people who take something that's good and pervert it to evil and do evil things. And within Scripture, we find that God condemns these things. We find that when we ask questions, things like why certain things are the way they are, and we take the overall discipline, well, people will say, well, if God is so great, why did He allow slavery? Well, I believe it wasn't God's will ever. And I believe that the key is found when He answered, and He said that marriage is supposed to last a lifetime, and there should be no divorce. And they said, well, then why did Moses give us the ability to divorce? And Jesus said, from the beginning, it wasn't intended to be that way. God's will was not to ever have divorce. But because of the hardness of your heart, Moses gave an out in a way that you could get a divorce. So it was not within God's will. And we see in history bad things happen, and then we look to Scripture and we see that these things are because of man's sinful nature, his selfish nature, and his desire to do what he wants above what is the best for his fellow man and what God would will for him. And of course, math measures the degree to which we separate from what we should do. And we see the lessons of Scripture played out. So I don't believe that there is a difference between Scripture and science and history. I believe they all fit together, and one illuminates the other, it doesn't disprove the other. And also, as far as the science in the Bible, there are a couple things you need to keep in mind. One of the biggest things is the Bible was written so that even ancient man could understand it. It wasn't written, the principles, the main reason the scriptures were given was, it still applies to today, but the science and some of the explanations were given so that ancient man could understand, as well as we find that then today science illuminates what we read in the Bible. So to just sum this all up, don't compartmentalize everything. I think we would all be better off if instead of doing that, we would see how that they all fit together. Science and history and math and the arts and the scriptures, they're not like this, butting heads with each other. They are meshing together to reveal the Creator, and not just the Creator, but also His message for us and His desire for how we should relate with each other. And for a Christian, top of the list is we are to be peacemakers. And so, like a few years ago, we had the whole thing going on about the statues. And you had, over here, you had the white supremacists, neo-Nazis, and so on. And over here you had those who wanted to get rid of the statues, and the progressives. But what I didn't see a whole lot of were Christians in the middle trying to bring both of these sides together and reason with each other to find a compromise. And that's something that I'm just really, I believe we as Christians have failed to do like we should, is to be peacemakers in our society. And I think we need to get back to that. We need to understand that we are salt and that we are light. We preserve society, and we also should be bringing about peace where there's conflict. That's one of the ways we can separate ourselves from everyone else. Anyway, that's my humble opinion, respectfully submitted to you for your consideration. And I would also then ask something else. If, as this channel progresses and I learn more and more what I'm doing and I get better at it, would you consider, please, hitting the subscribe button, the notification button? I'm going to try to have these videos up, a new one each week, about uploaded somewhere Monday, Tuesday, somewhere in that area, certainly no later than Tuesday. And eventually, soon, you will also see a donate button. And if you would, consider making a donation to this site so that it can grow and expand. I would love to be able to expand it to a weekly blog as well as a podcast. So, go ahead and leave comments, both on things I can do better, and I have no problem with us getting into some discussions. Please remember, be civil, be kind, be compassionate. There's no need for name calling. You don't need to do that, and when you do, you show that you are being led by the flesh and not by the Spirit. So, again, that's my humble opinion, respectfully submitted to you for your consideration. Thank you, and have a good day.